Arteta made a phone call that could change Arsenal history forever. Imagine being so serious about winning a football match that you call up a rival manager and ask him to tell you everything he knows about the team you are about to face. Not just a casual conversation, a deep, detailed, repeated conversation where you keep pushing for more information because you refuse to go into the biggest game of your life without knowing every single thing you possibly can. That is exactly what Mikel Arteta did. He picked up the phone and called Chelsea manager Enzo Maresca. He reportedly reached out to members of the Chelsea dressing room too. And according to sources close to the situation, he even personally contacted Chelsea captain Reece James to help make sure Maresca would open up and share what Arsenal needed to know. Why would Arteta go this far? Because on May 30th, 2026, Arsenal faced Paris Saint-Germain in the UEFA Champions League final. The biggest game this club has played in many, many years, and Arteta is leaving absolutely nothing to chance. Welcome to the Olivia's Sports Arsenal community. Today we are going to break down everything about this story, from how Arsenal got to this final, to what Maresca told Arteta, to what Arsenal need to do on the night to bring home the most famous trophy in European club football. Grab a seat because this one is going to be good. How Arsenal even got to this Champions League final. Before we talk about phone calls and tactical secrets, we need to appreciate the road Arsenal walked to get to this final. Because it was not a smooth, easy stroll. It was a tough, hard-fought journey that tested this squad in every way possible. Arsenal came through the quarter-final stage against Sporting CP of Portugal. The first leg was played away from home and it ended 0-0. Tight game, no goals, but Arsenal came back with a clean sheet and that was important. The second leg at the Emirates Stadium also finished 0, 2 legs, 2 clean sheets, and Arsenal went through on away goals. It was not the most entertaining 2 games you will ever watch, but in European football, getting the result that takes you through is all that matters. Arsenal were smart and professional about it. Then came the semi-final, and this is where things got really serious. Arsenal were drawn against Atletico Madrid. If you know European football, you know what that means. Atletico Madrid under Diego Simeone are one of the most organised, physical and difficult sides in the whole of Europe. They do not give you space, they do not give you time on the ball, they press you relentlessly and they defend with everything they have. Beating Atletico Madrid over 2 legs in a Champions League semi-final is a massive achievement. The first leg was in Madrid. Arsenal drew 1-1. It was a hard game, exactly the kind of game Atletico love because it is tight and scrappy and uncomfortable. But Arsenal scored an away goal and kept themselves in it going into the second leg. The return game at the Emirates was extraordinary. Arsenal won 1-0, 1 goal, but it was enough. Arsenal were through to the Champions League final and the Emirates Stadium went absolutely wild. Now think about what Arsenal did. They kept clean sheets when they needed to. They scored away goals in a tough away ground. They held their nerve when Atletico tried to drag them into a brutal battle. That is a team that knows how to handle pressure. That is a team that is ready for a final. On the other side of the draw, PSG had their own battle and it was a spectacular one. PSG faced Bayern Munich in the semi-final. Over both legs, the total goals scored were 9. PSG went through 5-4 on aggregate. It was breathtaking, exciting football, but it also told you something important about PSG. They can score goals against anyone. Even Bayern Munich, one of the most powerful clubs on the planet, could not stop them from scoring. That is a warning for Arsenal going into this final. So we have Arsenal organised, determined, with a real defensive backbone against PSG, free scoring, technically brilliant and full of confidence after beating Bayern. This final has everything. The phone call that shocked English football. Now let us get into the story that has everyone talking. Because honestly, this is one of the most fascinating things Arteta has done in his time as Arsenal manager. According to reports that came out very recently, Arteta reached out to Enzo Maresca, the head coach of Chelsea, to ask for detailed information on PSG. Specifically, Arteta wanted to know how Chelsea managed to score 3 goals against PSG in last season's Champions League campaign. 3 goals against PSG is genuinely remarkable. Think about how many top European sides tried to hurt PSG and barely managed 1 goal, let alone 3. Chelsea found a way to do something that most clubs failed to do, and Arteta wanted to know exactly how. The conversations between Arteta and the Chelsea camp reportedly went deep into specific tactical details. They talked about PSG's defensive weaknesses and where exactly those weaknesses show up during a game. They talked about how to press PSG aggressively and in what areas of the pitch that pressing is most effective. And they talked about how to stop PSG's attack from controlling the transitions, which are those crucial moments in a football match when possession switches from one team to the other. Sources described Arteta as desperate to understand the tactical setup Chelsea used against PSG. That word desperate is interesting. It does not mean Arteta was panicking. It means he was absolutely determined to gather every piece of useful information available to him before this final. That is not desperation in a negative sense. That is the hunger of a manager who wants to win more than anything else. And then there is the Reece James detail, which is the part of this story that really surprised people. Arteta reportedly personally contacted the Chelsea captain to help convince Maresca to be open and share the information. Think about what that means. The Arsenal manager going directly to a Chelsea player asking for help, that takes a certain amount of courage and a complete absence of ego. Arteta did not care how it looked. He cared about winning the Champions League final, and he was willing to do whatever it took to be as prepared as possible. Can you think of many managers who would do that? Most managers have too much pride to ask a rival for help. Arteta went ahead and did it anyway, and that tells you a lot about the man and about how seriously he is taking May 30. What did Maresca actually tell Arteta about PSG? This is the part that every Arsenal fan needs to understand, because these are the tactical details that could shape how Arsenal approach the final. The conversations reportedly focused on 3 specific areas where Chelsea found success against PSG. Let us break each one down in simple terms. The first area is PSG's defensive weaknesses. PSG are an incredibly good team when they have the ball and when the game is flowing their way. But like every team in the world, they have areas in their defensive structure that can be exploited. Chelsea found those areas and went after them deliberately. When you understand where a team is vulnerable, you can build your whole attacking game plan around putting the ball in those spaces and getting your players into those positions. Arsenal will now go into the final with that specific knowledge. The second area is pressing PSG aggressively. This is very interesting because aggressive pressing is something Arteta already believes in deeply. Since he took the Arsenal job, he has worked hard to build a team that presses with intensity and intelligence. His Arsenal side are one of the best pressing teams in the Premier League. So when Maresca told him that the key to unlocking PSG is aggressive, well-organised pressing, it was not completely new information for Arteta. But hearing specifically how Chelsea press PSG, in what shape, in what areas, and at what moments, gives Arteta a very practical blueprint to follow. The third area is stopping PSG's attack from controlling transitions. This is possibly the most important piece of advice in the whole conversation. Transitions are the moments in a match when one team loses the ball and the other team suddenly has it and can attack. PSG in transition are genuinely terrifying. They have forwards who are among the fastest and most creative in world football. When PSG win the ball in their own half and have space to run into, they can go from defence to goal in seconds. Arsenal need a clear plan for how to defend these moments, and Chelsea have given Arteta the details of how they handled it. Now, here is the most powerful part of all of this. Chelsea did not just talk about these things as theories, they actually did them in a real Champions League game against PSG, and they worked. They scored 3 goals. The tactical advice is backed up by real evidence that it can be done. That gives Arsenal genuine belief that the plan is not just theory, but something that has been proven on the pitch against this exact opponent. Does Maresca's advice actually hold up? This is a question that is worth asking properly, because you do not want to go into a Champions League final overconfident based on something that happened in a different competition at a different time. Will PSG have looked at those Chelsea games and fixed the problems? Possibly. Top coaches and analysts study previous matches carefully. PSG will know that Chelsea exposed certain weaknesses. They will have worked on those areas in training. They might come into the final with adjustments specifically designed to stop teams from doing what Chelsea did. But here is the thing. Tactical weaknesses are not always something you can fully eliminate just by working on them in training. Some weaknesses are built into the way a team plays, into the system and the shape they use, and changing those things too much can disrupt the balance of the whole team. PSG have reached a Champions League final playing a certain way. They are not going to completely change their identity for one game. So while they may have made some adjustments, the core weaknesses Chelsea identified are likely still there to some degree. And here is something else to think about. Arsenal are not Chelsea. Arsenal under Arteta press in a specific way with specific triggers and specific movements that are trained every day on the training ground. Arteta will not just copy what Chelsea did. He will take the information from Maresca and adapt it to the strengths of his own players and his own system. That could actually make Arsenal even more dangerous than Chelsea were against PSG, because Arsenal have better pressing players and a more deeply drilled pressing structure. The bottom line is that Maresca's advice is genuinely valuable and it gives Arsenal an edge. Whether that edge is enough to win on the night is what we will find out on May 30th. What the numbers say about Arsenal's chances. Let us talk about the statistics and the predictions, because the numbers around this final are interesting. The current win probability model gives PSG a 43% chance of winning the final. Arsenal are given a 29.6% chance. The remaining 27.4% covers the possibility of a draw after 90 minutes, which would lead to extra time and potentially penalties. So PSG go into the final as the favourite. And looking at the way they have performed throughout this Champions League campaign, you can understand why. They beat Bayern Munich, who are themselves one of the most feared clubs in the world. They scored goals freely. They have world-class players in every area of the pitch. On paper, PSG are the better team by the numbers, but football is not played on paper. And those numbers tell you something else that is very important. Arsenal at 29.6% are far from out of this. In a one-off match, a 30% chance is genuinely significant. Football history is full of finals where the team with a lower probability of winning actually went ahead and won it. Sometimes the most prepared team wins. Sometimes the team with the clearest game plan wins. Sometimes the team with the strongest belief and the best organisation wins. Arsenal have all of those things in their favour, and think about what that 27.4% draw probability means. There is more than a 1 in 4 chance that this game goes to extra time and potentially penalties. If Arsenal can be compact, organised and hard to beat for 90 minutes, they give themselves a real chance to take it to extra time, and then anything can happen. Penalty shootouts are notoriously unpredictable, and Arsenal have a goalkeeper and a set of players who can handle that pressure. The honest read on these numbers is that PSG are the better team on the statistics, but Arsenal absolutely have the tools to upset the odds. It would not be the first time in Champions League history that the underdog came out on top. How Arsenal can win this final, based on everything we know from the road Arsenal took to get here, the information Arteta gathered from Maresca, and the way Arsenal play under Arteta's coach, is what Arsenal need to do on May 30th to give themselves the best chance of winning. Press from the very first minute. Arsenal cannot afford to let PSG settle into a comfortable rhythm on the ball. From the opening whistle, Arsenal's forwards need to get tight to PSG's defenders and midfielders and make sure they have no easy options. The pressing needs to be organised and intelligent. There need to be clear triggers, moments when Arsenal commit to pressing together as a unit. Random pressing without structure will just leave gaps behind. Arsenal's pressing under Arteta is usually very well drilled, and this is where all those training sessions need to show up on the biggest night. Be compact and disciplined in the middle third. PSG's midfielders are technically exceptional, and they love to receive the ball in the spaces between the opposition's lines of defence. Arsenal need to make sure those spaces are closed. So distances between Arsenal's defensive line, their midfield, and their attack need to be short and tight. If PSG's midfielders have space to pick passes and find their forwards in good positions, Arsenal will struggle. Keeping everything compact is the foundation of Arsenal's defensive plan. Win the ball and attack quickly. Some of Arsenal's best chances will come not from long periods of possession, but from winning the ball through pressing and immediately playing forward at pace. PSG's defensive shape can be stretched when they are caught out of position after losing the ball. Arsenal need to be ready to attack quickly in those moments, getting the ball forward before PSG can reset their defensive structure. Be patient and trust the plan. There will be moments in this game when PSG have all the ball and Arsenal are under real pressure. Those moments will test Arsenal's nerve. The temptation might be to push forward and try to win back possession. But if Arsenal get stretched and PSG get in behind them, it could be over very quickly. Arsenal need to stay in their shape, trust the defensive plan and wait for their moments. 1 or 2 chances taken well could be the difference. Believe that they deserve to be here. This is not a small thing. Arsenal have earned their place in this final. They beat Atletico Madrid away from home. They progressed through tough knockout rounds. They have a manager who has prepared them better than any team could ask for. Walking onto that pitch on May 30th, Arsenal need to feel that this stage belongs to them just as much as it belongs to PSG. The PSG threat Arsenal cannot take lightly. It would not be honest to write this whole piece without properly respecting how dangerous PSG are going into this final, because they are very dangerous. PSG scored 5 goals in their semi-final tie against Bayern Munich across 2 legs, winning through on aggregate. That kind of scoring run against Bayern Munich does not happen by accident. PSG are playing with real confidence and their forwards are in brilliant form. Their ability in transition has already been talked about in relation to Maresca's advice, but it is worth repeating. When PSG win the ball and have space to attack, they are one of the most frightening teams to defend against in world football. Their forwards move at incredible speed and they have the technical quality to finish in very tight situations. One moment of defensive uncertainty from Arsenal and PSG can punish them immediately. PSG also press well themselves. This is not a team that just sits back and waits for you to come to them. They press high and they want to win the ball back quickly. Arsenal's defenders and midfielders will need to be clean and confident with the ball under pressure. Any sloppy passing in dangerous areas could lead to PSG getting a chance in a very threatening position. Set pieces are also worth mentioning. PSG have players who are threats from corners and free kicks, and Arsenal need to be disciplined and organised in those moments. None of this means Arsenal cannot win. It just means Arsenal need to be at their very best, and the preparation Arteta has put in, including that phone call to Maresca, means Arsenal will be ready. What this final means for the Olivia's Sports Arsenal community, let us take a moment and talk about what this actually means for all of us who support Arsenal and who follow everything to do with this club. Through Olivia's Sports Arsenal, supporting Arsenal means you have been through a lot of different feelings over the years. There have been brilliant seasons and frustrating ones. There have been incredible individual performances, and there have been games where you just wanted to turn the television off. There have been moments of real joy and moments of genuine disappointment. Every Arsenal fan knows what that journey feels like, but a Champions League final is something different. This is the highest level. This is the competition where you measure yourself against the very best clubs in Europe and the world. Getting to this final means Arsenal have already done something remarkable. Whatever happens on May 30th, this squad and this manager have taken the club to a place they have not been in a long, long time. And the way they have done it matters too. Arteta did not just get lucky. He has built this team carefully, brought in the right players, worked on the right systems, and created a culture at Arsenal where every player is working toward the same goal. The fact that he called Maresca and reached out to Reece James just to gather more information for one game shows you the relentless dedication he brings to this job every single day. For every person in the Olivia Sports Arsenal community, this is a moment to come together, to support this team with everything you have, and to enjoy the fact that your club is in a Champions League final. One last question before May 30th here is the question that has been sitting at the back of every Arsenal fan's mind since the final was confirmed, and it is the most important question of all. Is this the year Arsenal finally win the Champions League? The honest answer is that nobody knows for certain. That is the beauty and the cruelty of football. The best prepared team does not always win, the favourites do not always win, but the team with the best plan, the best belief and the best execution on the night very often does. Arsenal have a manager who has done something very few managers would do, which is call a rival and ask for help. That is not weakness, that is intelligence. That is the kind of thinking that wins trophies. Arsenal have players who have shown throughout this campaign that they can handle the pressure of big European nights. They kept clean sheets when it mattered. They scored important away goals. They held on when it got difficult. And Arsenal have a community of supporters across the world, including everyone here on Olivia Sports Arsenal, who believe in this club and will be behind them every step of the way on May 30th. The final is coming. Arsenal are ready, and on that night, anything is possible. A final word to every Arsenal supporter reading this: football is a sport that connects people across countries, languages and backgrounds. It brings strangers together and creates friendships that last a lifetime. The reason communities like Olivia Sports Arsenal exist is because football does something to people that very few other things in life can do. It makes you feel things deeply. It makes the wins feel like the greatest thing in the world and the losses feel like the end of everything. And then you come back the next time because you love it too much to walk away. On May 30th, 2026, Arsenal Football Club have a chance to create a memory that supporters will talk about for decades. A chance to win a Champions League final against one of the best club sides in Europe. Mikel Arteta has left no stone unturned in preparing for this moment. He made phone calls he did not have to make. He asked questions that some managers would be too proud to ask. He gathered every piece of information available to him, and he will use all of it to give Arsenal the best possible chance of winning. So wherever you're watching from on May 30th, whether you are in London or Lagos, in Nairobi or New York, in any corner of the world where Arsenal fans gather to share in this experience, know that your team is ready. Know that your manager believes. Know that this squad has earned every minute of this final. Get loud, get behind them, and get ready for the most important Arsenal match in years. Come on, Arsenal. This is our moment. Written for the Olivia Sports Arsenal community.